The San Francisco 49ers have 3 star players who are hurt, and their status going into Monday Night Football against the Minnesota Vikings in a little bit of question, as we're going to talk about Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, and Trent Williams on the program here today. With Deebo, it's a shoulder injury, Christian McCaffrey, an oblique injury, and Trent Williams left the game, then came back with that ankle injury. This is the newest update that we just got here on the show, and it's coming in from Clayton Holloway, who covers the NFL for the NFL Network. Kyle Shanahan addressed the media, gave some injury updates on Christian McCaffrey, on his oblique and rib injury, wide receiver Deebo Samuel, who's dealing with that shoulder injury, and has some updates for all of these players, including Trent Williams as well. Christian McCaffrey currently having an MRI on Monday afternoon to determine the severity of that oblique injury here. And the oblique/ribs, it's basically the same thing. So we'll see what happens with that MRI. Deebo Samuel is going to be day-to-day. And then Trent Williams, this is great news for San Francisco and for the best left tackle in the game, does not have a high ankle sprain. Usually those injuries can last a couple of weeks. Now we're going to go through some reports from doctors on this show to really give you good insight as to what these injuries mean. So stay tuned and get informed today. Let's start off with McCaffrey. Injured his oblique in this game. The oblique muscles that attach to the ribs. That's why we're kind of coining this as an oblique/rib injury. The good news for McCaffrey, X-rays negative. That means that he does not have a fractured rib. A lot of us know about Pro Football Doc. Dr. David Chao used to be the team doctor for the San Diego Chargers. He does not see this as a long-term injury, and he does doubt that Christian McCaffrey goes on IR, but if there's something in that MRI that reveals something that maybe the Niners didn't initially know, or they can't find out until he gets an MRI, that's what determines how long he could be out or how quickly he could come back. Deepak Chona, also a medical doctor on Twitter, and he had this to say: we have 2 pieces of promising news. He was talking about this on the SF Niners podcast. One is that the average oblique strain is about a 1-week injury. Most players return with a low performance impact. We don't know yet the severity of Christian McCaffrey's injury, but we do know that he tried to go back in after sustaining the injury. Of course, he wasn't really able to play at that point, but just the fact that he wasn't immediately ruled out does suggest that it's not on the highly severe end of the spectrum. So we'll probably have an MRI today. Then we'll know a little bit more. But again, rare to have a big absence from this. So that's coming from the doctors here. Rare to have a long-standing absence. And if San Francisco is without Christian McCaffrey for a long period of time, that's really costly. And let me just say this about CMC. Like San Francisco, and this has been a talking point here on the show, they've been overusing him far too much. Jordan Mason needs to get more involved, and that's up to Kyle Shanahan to do that. I'll call him out for it. And Jordan Mason needs to get more carries to just take some of the workload off of McCaffrey's shoulders, because through 6 games, this workload is not sustainable. You want McCaffrey to be close to 100% or as close to 100% as possible when the playoffs come around. And I just don't see how that's possible if you continue to use him this much through 6 games. He's a great special player, but he's playing a running back position and taking all of these big hits. As we've seen against the Cowboys and the Cleveland Browns, other teams are going out of their way to really hit him and hit him hard. 110 carries through 6 games, 553 yards, 23 catches, 177 yards, and 9 total touchdowns. It's great that he's able to do that. It's not great that he's suffered these kind of nicks and knacks over the last couple of weeks. And if his usage like this continues, I just don't see how he's going to be able to stay healthy for a 17-game regular season. Again, hard to keep a player off the field when he's number 1 in the NFL in rushing yards and he can impact the passing game the way that he does. I think he's also a pretty underrated pass blocker too. 553 yards, leading the NFL right now ahead of Zach Moss, Devon Achane, Kyren Williams, and DeAndre Swift. Because the Niners are banged up, I do want to ask you this. Sound off in the comments section. Can the Niners still beat the Vikings in prime time while hurt like this? For yes, like the video. For no, I want you to comment why. We'll get to Deebo Samuel and Trent Williams coming up. First, though, let me tell you about the best ticketing app and the only app that you should be using if you're looking for tickets to go to a sporting event, a concert, a comedy show, that and a whole lot more. What makes Game Time the best ticketing app? Last-minute tickets and flash deals allowing you to save money, get in the door to see this great San Francisco 49ers team. You can go to games, concerts, and more. Myself, I'm a huge music fan, so I love going to concerts, and I've used the Game Time app for that, as well as going to sporting events as well. It's very easy to use. What I love about it, you get views from the seats on the app, and it's the lowest price guaranteed. When I talk about the views from the seats, not only on the left side of your screen do you see the price point for the games this year for San Francisco, but then in that middle photo and then that photo to the right, you can see what you'll be seeing for the price point of where you'll be sitting. And speaking of prices, you save money by downloading the app for free, and all you have to do is plug in the promo code NinersChat to save $20 off. So we're going to put this link in the comment section as well as in the description of this video. Game Time, proud sponsor for today's show. We appreciate them for the support and appreciate you if you support our show by downloading the Game Time app and using our promo code. So we hit the latest on Christian McCaffrey. Now let's get to the latest on Deebo Samuel here. He left in the first quarter with a shoulder injury. X-rays negative. He left the game. It's hard to tell how or why he got injured. He had a couple of drops, so too did Brandon Ayuk, had a couple of carries. I think the injury happened on one of those carries, maybe both of the carries, but when he went into the tent on the sideline, it didn't look like he was in a lot of pain. And then when he walked to the locker room, which the broadcast showed, it didn't look like he was in a lot of pain. But something must have been nagging him with that shoulder injury. Once again, we go to Deepak Chona, who's a doctor, and relays a lot of this information on Twitter. There's also some reason for optimism with Deebo. Had negative x-rays, and then the Niners comment suggested that he will likely be fine in the relative near term. The most common situation here would be a mild AC joint sprain. We've seen a number of these this season. The average is about 2 weeks, and most players would return with a mild performance hit. However, Deebo Samuel has a history of playing through some minor injuries, so it wouldn't be all that surprising if he's out there this coming week. If he is, I would expect a mild dip to his performance. So with McCaffrey, with Deebo, with Trent Williams, it's kind of looking like right now their status going into primetime against Minnesota a little bit questionable. I think it also comes down to this. Does San Francisco believe that they can win this game without a couple of their marquee players who have all been all-pros at some point in their career? Deebo Samuel this year looking like the 2021 Deebo Samuel who was an all-pro. His yards per catch this year, second best of his career. That first best season coming in 2021, again, when he was the all-pro and just a borderline MVP candidate. This year, dip in production over the last couple of games, but how about what he did against the New York Giants on Thursday Night Football when Brandon Ayuk was out? 32 targets, 20 catches, 302 yards, and that average yards per catch at 15.1. He's been an explosive player, and of course, a lot of Niner fans are concerned about him. He signs this new contract. He's been injured pretty much every season of his career. Even in 2021, he missed a game or two because of injury, and the injuries continue to kind of linger on his resume for a player who plays really hard. You, of course, have some concerns about how he ages as a player because of his physical playing style. The 49ers against the Browns, in my opinion, merely just missed his presence for being on the field. Even when he doesn't have catches, even when he doesn't have carries, he impacts the game just with his motion and just with his presence. That poses a matchup problem for opposing defenses, and they always have to account for where he is. Without him and without Christian McCaffrey, Niners didn't really have a run game, and then they had to play a lot of Ray McLeod and Jawan Jennings and Brandon Ayuk. And that wide receiving core, a little bit depleted. And when you think about this receiving core, I wouldn't hate San Francisco making a move going into the NFL trade deadline to bring in some more depth pieces. Lastly, for Trent Williams, it is not a high ankle sprain. That's like the dreaded injury. Offensive linemen are able to come back soon because they're so tough, and Trent Williams had to do that. He suffered these injuries with San Francisco as recently as last year. Pro Football Doc. he's most concerned about the Trent Williams injury. Right ankle got rolled up on. He struggled after that injury, especially going up against Myles Garrett. We'll break down some numbers here in a bit. And we also saw how Kyle Juszczyk and George Kittle often went to that side. So Kyle Shanahan, in a way, and this is one of those like nuanced type of things that when you watch the film, maybe you realize the Niners offense and Kyle Shanahan didn't call some plays because of Trent Williams being banged up, but Juice and Kittle were often in motion or just overall on that side to give Williams some help going up against Myles Garrett. And Pro Football Doc also saying that he thinks that Trent Williams, the most questionable going into this game Monday night against the Minnesota Vikings. High ankle sprains usually get more sore the day after, and this can be a multi-week injury. Luckily for Trent Williams, according to head coach Kyle Shanahan, he's able to avoid that. It looked like a textbook high ankle sprain with the player falling right into his ankle there. Body weight looked ugly. Trent Williams did leave the stadium in a walking boot. Of course, that can be precautionary, but still something to monitor all throughout this week for the best left tackle in football. If Jalen Moore has to play left tackle, that is not ideal. And those numbers that I teased a little bit ago about Trent Williams struggling, against Myles Garrett won 31% of his pass rushing snaps against Trent Williams. That is the highest percentage given up by Trent Williams in his entire career. So Brock Purdy, one of his worst games of his career against the Browns. Kyle Shanahan, one of his worst games as a play caller in his head coaching career. And it doesn't help when Trent Williams is having a poor performance like that, and it didn't help with some of the injuries. I do like what Trent Williams said about this loss, though, and I do see this as potentially being a character-building loss for San Francisco. You know, Fred Warner said we needed this loss. We needed to get humbled. And Williams, he was blunt. He was honest. He said, honestly, we probably didn't deserve to win that game, but it's a pretty good learning experience. We played really good defense. It's a dogfight. Obviously, we didn't come out on the side we wanted to, but honestly, this team could probably draw a lot from this game today. We had a rough start as an offense, but when we needed the plays at the end, we made them in the 2-minute drive. We just came up a little bit short. And those are all facts right there from Trent Williams. So Deebo Samuel with the shoulder, Christian McCaffrey with the oblique, and Trent Williams with the ankle. We're going to continue to keep you updated on those injuries and all injuries going into Monday Night Football against the Minnesota Vikings. That's why you subscribe. If you have a question and you want to interact with me on social media, you can find me on X as well as Instagram at Chase_Senior.